So I'm making raspberry bars. For this recipe, you need 3/4 cup of butter that's softened. And in order to do this, you either have to leave it out on the counter until it reaches room temperature, or you have to put it in the microwave for 15-second increments. Then also you need 1 cup of packed brown sugar. Then you need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and then a teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, 1.5 cups of old-fashioned oats, and 1 jar of raspberry preserves. To start, you should preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and then you should also thoroughly grease a 13 by 9 inch pan with either Pam or Crisco. Crisco usually works better because you can get into the corners. To start baking, you should put the 3/4 cup of butter, which is a stick and a half, into a large bowl. For this recipe, you should use salted butter, just because it adds more flavor. But if you wanted to make it healthier, you could probably try using unsalted. The oats in this recipe contain 5 grams of protein, and also contain riboflavin and thiamine. The raspberry jelly is also somewhat good for you, but it has a lot of sugar. So once you have the butter in a bowl, you have to cream together the sugar and the butter, so you need the 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar in the bowl as well. In order to cream these ingredients together, you should either use a wooden spoon or, in this case, an electric mixer. When you're using an electric mixer, there are many different types. There are many different brands. When putting the beaters in, make sure that you don't press too hard. There are also many different types of mixers. There's the handheld ones, and there's also the standing ones. The standing ones are usually more expensive than the handheld ones. But what you want to do is you want to cream together the butter and the sugar. You want to make sure that it doesn't overmix. And then when you're done with that, in a separate bowl, you want to mix together the flour, which you need 1.5 cups of. You need the 1 teaspoon of salt. And then you also want to add the baking soda, and you need 1/2 teaspoon of that. And then you also have to add the 1.5 cups of oats. For this, you can use, I just use Quaker old-fashioned oats. But basically any sort of oats or nuts that you want to add into this would make the recipe even better. And basically you just want to mix that together just so that everything's combined. You can do that with whatever sort of utensil you want. Then when all the dry ingredients are mixed together and basically look like that, you want to start adding them to the butter and also sugar. When using an electric mixer, make sure that you don't just pull the beaters out, because that can also break it. So usually you can press a button on the back of it and they just pop right out. For this next part, you're going to want to use a wooden spoon, because we are going to combine the sugar, the flour, and the oats mixture with the butter and the sugar. And you want to do this gradually, just so that you don't end up with huge clumps. Other ways to make this recipe healthier include using more of the oats, but you need the amount of butter and the sugar that's put into this to help bind it all together. You could probably try and play around with the amount of butter you use. You can try probably using a little bit less, just because butter is not good for you, but once it looks like a bunch of crumbs like that, you're going to want to take your 13 by 9-inch pan that is greased, and you are going to spread half of the crumb mixture on the bottom. When spreading out the mixture, you want to make sure that you pat it down on the bottom, because this is going to act as your bottom layer, and without it, the bars will basically fall apart. After you get the oats spread on the bottom, so you have a layer that's basically even and looks like this, you're going to want to take the raspberry jelly, and you need about a 10-ounce jar. This is about a 12-ounce jar, but it all depends on how much jelly you want to use in this. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to spoon the jelly onto the oats, and you're going to spread it around and make sure that it covers all of the oats. Raspberries originated in Europe and were first cultivated by the Romans in the 4th century. They are also very good for you. At first, raspberries were used to cure medical issues rather than just eating, but over time they realized that they were just good and people just like to eat them. Also, this recipe can be made with any sort of jelly that you want. It would probably be good with any sort of berry, like strawberry jelly or even peach jelly would probably be good. You want to make sure that you spread the jelly all the way to the corners, too. You also want to try and make sure that you have an even layer of the jelly on it as well. Basically, you're going to end up with a product that looks like that. And then you are going to take the rest of the crumb mixture that you have left in your bowl, and you're going to sprinkle it on top of the jelly. This is just kind of to give it a crust on top, rather than just having the jelly sit. You will end up with something like that, and then you want to bake. You want to put this in the oven and bake it for 20 to 25 minutes at 400 degrees. This recipe in total costs about $5.13 per dish almost, because when going through all of the ingredients, the most expensive is the butter. Well, actually, no. The most expensive is the oats. But even that, if you get a large container, it over time is more beneficial. In total, for the cost of butter used in this recipe, it's $1.13. Then also the amount of brown sugar, it's about 48 cents. For the amount of flour that's used, it's about 48 cents as well. And then for the amount of oats used, it's $1.44. And then for the amount of raspberry preserves, it's about $2.10. So after you take it out of the oven, you're going to want to let it cool until the bars are completely cool, and before you cut them. Otherwise, your bars will just fall apart. And basically, when it comes out of the oven, it'll look like this. The jelly will be bubbling and all of that, so you're going to want to let that cool before you touch it, because otherwise you can burn yourself. And yeah.